I remember vaguely one time coming over to your apartment, but I only remember doing that once. And the rest of the time, you came over to me, and then one of the times you came over, and you told me about this guy, Hearth from Earth.
I was going to bring that up.
And I said, yeah, I'll listen to his stuff. And there was some reel-to-reel tapes, and I listened, and it was a guy who wrote about UFOs. And then when I found out that Hearth, he played at a laundromat on Thursday nights, and then sometimes on the weekend he would play at the mental facility, and that was the gigs he did. And I thought, I gotta work with this guy. This sounds right to me. And so I ended up having a really nice time, thanks to Norm, on discovering this guy, Hearth from Earth. So anyway, that was a side thing, but I remember all of this stuff, and then you'd come over again with a few cases and open them up in the living room, and we would go through and look at these different incredible guitars, and a couple stand out, or more than a couple stand out to me when I think about it. There was one Martin, and I'm not very good with the numbers, the 00, 000, 42, 49, whatever, but but there was a Koa wood from 1919 Martin. And boy, it was so pretty. It was so beautiful. And in the last waltz, I gave it to Emmylou Harris to play in the movie. And then I didn't know, and found out later on from Martin that there was only one of those. It was one of a kind. And so you think, whoa, one of a kind, that must be good. And then maybe just a few years ago, they asked me if they could remake those guitars, a replica of the 1919 guitar, because they thought it was that beautiful too. And they did. And I have the old one and I have the new one too. And there was another guitar. It wasn't one of a kind, but it was a gut string, nylon string, Martin, that at one point somebody told me it was an extremely valuable instrument. And so I would play, have it and everything, and Eric Clapton be around, and he said, man, what a beautiful instrument this is. And so he played it on some of my recordings, that guitar, and I've used it on, recordings too. And I don't remember the number on that either, but it looks just like a regular Martin, but the neck is a little bit wider on it because it has those nylon strings on it, and it sounds beautiful. Then Martin came to me again and said, we'd like to make a replica of that guitar as well. And they did, and I have #1, and Eric Clapton has #2. So anyway, that's a couple. And then, speaking of one of a kind, one day Norman came over and he had a big case, and all the other cases, most of them looked in the shape of a guitar, but this was kind of long and box. Opened this up, and it had a guitar that was half guitar, half mandolin, red Gibson. And I found out later on that 2 years later, that was one of a kind. There was others, something like it, but not that one. And I had a couple of experts look at that and look up and do all the work on it, and find out the story behind it. And they said, yeah, there's others a little different shape, but that's the only one like this. And I also remember back then too, that I bought that guitar from Norman, and then a while later he came back and he said, you know, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have sold you that guitar. And I said, well, it was a bad mistake. And no, but he found out that it was more than either one of us thought it was anyway.